You've all talked about the foresight that council had about 10 years ago that ultimately led us to where we are today. What strategic decisions do we need to be thinking about now that is going to set us up for the next 5 to 10 years? So ultimately, in 5 or 10 years' time, we're repeating this panel when people are saying, hey, 5 years ago, council or yourselves decided to do this, this or this. What are those things that you think we should be thinking about today?
I would say my first observation is, and as much as it's a joke, the platform, as in being able to build on Google's products and capability, gives you global reach. So if you just use one really simple example, Anderson showed this very elegant map with a picture of connectivity that looks like a mesh. And what that demonstrates is that you're able to reach out into the customer universe and sell whatever digital services that you build in real time with the lowest latency. I've had some really great examples where people have said to me, you need to understand two things. One is that essentially connectivity is the lifeblood of digital capability. The time it takes for me to send an email to Chris and have it come back is not a life and death situation. But if you're providing emergency medical services, or you're using a Da Vinci robot, or you're doing something in real time to provide the world's best doctor talking to a surgeon in real time, you need to have the lowest latency connectivity path, and you need to have redundancy. And the Sunshine Coast has both of those things. The other quick comment I would make is that when we started, my first year, I think we turned over $900,000. We're now about 20 billion. And we're certainly not Google. But getting on the road and starting and finding customers and getting going is ultimately, you look back after a decade, Bill Gates probably has the single greatest saying as to what it means to do that. And that is, people almost always overestimate what can be achieved in the next couple of years and underestimate what can be achieved in a decade.
I'd say Band of Race is the winner. Okay? They won the competition. Okay, Band of Race is the winner. And we want you all to be winners as well. Okay? Answering your question. It's all about a roadmap for us. We welcome the competition. We don't want to be the last ones laying new cables in the Sunshine Coast. In this industry, there's a lot of leaders and followers, and we lead and follow in certain ways and in other ways. So we hope in a few years from now, there will be somebody else here talking about laying a newer cable. Because all the ideas that you put in your economic development roadmap 2 years ago, that's now, for instance, is materializing. Those ideas are materializing. A good idea is only a good idea, and we all know that, once they get implemented. And putting this in the roadmap, not being complacent with the competitive edge that I do believe, I firmly believe, that Sunshine Coast enjoys today. But taking this as a positive force to move forward and drive your economic development plan forward to attract more engagement and more investment from within, as well from other parties of Australia and the world, being very cognizant of this mesh network, because once you touch a on-ramp point of a Google network, a Google Cloud, you are anywhere in the world, anywhere you want. That allows for things such as developing AI agents and everything else that comes with it. I think that's what we need. And that is not starting with a differentiation, but building further the differentiation that Sunshine Coast already has.
Yeah, just quickly, I've been, again, saying this at a lot of the national nursing events and healthcare events that I talk at, and I just finished my innovation fellowship with Ohio State. I actually hate the word innovation. You know, people like patting themselves on the back and talking about innovation and how wonderful innovation is. And 6 months later, you look back and realise, well, what did you actually do? You know, there's a lot of talk about innovation. And in a startup, like who owns a business here, or, you know, in senior management in the region? Okay, so maybe 15% of the room. The truth is, if you don't get paid every month, you have no cash flow, you don't have a business. You need sales. To grow a business, you need to do business. There's a deal flow element to that. Universities are amazing, and in healthcare they've got to write research papers, but they take 3 to 5 years to get the knowledge base, right? In AI, it's just not going to happen. We're going to sit down and write a research paper today, and in 5 years it'll be irrelevant because the models have changed, etc. So where is innovation going to come from on the coast? Change. It's going to be you people with the businesses. You're going to have to drive that. And I think what we need on the coast is thought leadership. There's a team of people here to tell the world how we're going to do it, how we're going to work with NEXTDC and Google and communicate that to position us on the coast. Because I want to do that in nursing in the K-12 sector, but I can't do that alone. That's a community piece that we'd have to do and say, look at what we're doing. Might not be right, but we're giving it a shot. This is what change looks like.
We've obviously sort of touched upon healthcare, but what other sort of sectors, when you sort of think about the future, you think about sort of this rapidly sort of emerging space and particularly sort of driven by AI, what other sort of sectors are front of mind with yourselves from a prioritisation perspective? What should we be thinking about from a regional perspective that are going to ultimately deliver the economic benefits, the jobs, you know, for this region? Great.
Minister Charlton asked me this exact question about 3 weeks ago, and the federal government, just out of interest, is asking themselves exactly that question today. What is it about Australia and our region that could give us a competitive advantage in the artificial intelligence era over any other country in Asia or the US or Europe? And today, we have globally leading industries that come out of Australia. We have global leadership in financial services, in healthcare, in nuclear medicine, in ag tech, in space. There are many more industry examples where Australia has global competitive advantage that can be parlayed into globally competitive large language models. We also have the regulatory environment that I talked to earlier that allows Australia to be a safe place with sovereign protections for its information that can't be accessed by other countries. So it's sort of the beginning of this transition into the AI era. And Australia has a very, very significant number of competitive advantages that we're just starting to touch on. The last point I'll make is that there's a difference between sovereign infrastructure and sovereign large language models. And for everybody, I think Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, and Ben Horowitz, if you're a founder or running a startup and you want to read a great book on the psychology of what it feels like to build a company, Ben Horowitz wrote a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And it's a stunningly good read. And I was reading it, I think in our first or second year of NEXTDC, asking myself the question, what have we done? And the key takeaway for me is that there are these extraordinary opportunities where Australia genuinely has competitive advantages, finding them and building on platforms. One of the things that I feel very privileged about is that we actually build a lot of our technology on Google's platform. So not only are Google a customer, but we build a lot of our technology on their technology as well. And building on capabilities today, you can be a solopreneur. You can be a one-man startup. You have access to more technology and more compute capability than at any other point in time in history. In the agentic era, and so today I think about my role as a CEO, a lot of the jobs, if you're not using ChatGPT's fully paid pro version, deep research, I'm involved with many universities, but I think for a very, very small amount of money, $200 a month, I've got unlimited PhD capable researchers working for me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Literally nothing I can't do and have access to that doesn't require me tapping into people in my own organisation. So we've got access to more knowledge than we've ever had at any other point in time in history. But the issue is not knowledge. The issue is being prepared to apply it. So take action.
So I'm having the joy at the moment to try and raise money with investors. So we've had a little traction. We've got new markets. Anybody got spare $4 million in the room that wouldn't mind chipping in? just looking to close the round before Christmas.
You can talk afterwards.
You take card?
But AI
What's the
agents,
merchant fee on that?
So VCs aggressive, nice people, aggressive. Did I say they're aggressive? No, but so we're building these AI agents for nurses. Teach a nurse how to read a scan or whatever it may be. We're also building them for patients. Like I've got 2 kids, a 6 and a 4-year-old. I love them to death, but it's taken a toll. Parenting is not easy. And when you leave the hospital, they give you a brochure. Thanks, mate. Thanks. But AI agents, just imagine a pair of wearables where you can ask, hey, what about my kid's nutrition and, how am I going to do X and how am I going to do Y? And rather than sitting at 2 a.m. scrolling through sheer exhaustion, mums could have some support that isn't a brochure, right? Like, it really is transformative for healthcare. But our VCs love that, but they want to increase the TAM, the size of the market, so they're pushing us into sport. Imagine being able to look up your favourite sports person with the stats. And the concept of agentic AI will be in every sector. And whatever your business is, if you don't have a facet to explore how those focused containers built off things like RAGs or retrieval augmented guidance systems where you can minimise hallucinations and mistakes, you're going to win to some degree. But again, it's speed to market at the moment, proving your use cases and getting it out there with traction that's going to win that. And having a cable might be a good, reliable source. So that's my thoughts.
So for us, maybe a 2-step approach, or actually a multiple-step approach. For us today in the room, like we are in the industry, we are working. So it's more about us being open to embrace the technology. It's our mindset. A lot about limitations and hurdles we find in our personal lives and professional lives, those decision makes we have to make, is we hold ourselves back a lot. We, for some reason, we are always very afraid of embracing technology for some reason. Embracing something new is difficult. Piggyback on your example of the scientific calculator. The biggest challenge for us coming out of the university was whether a computer would take out our jobs or not. That was our challenge. We were competing against computers because computers would do programming better than us. And that's when we started to use Microsoft Word. Microsoft was the name? Not Sheets, what's the other one? Excel. Sheets is better than Excel, by the way. Okay. So that was the challenge for us. So today, how do we embrace and how we become friends with AI? How does that positively impact our lives? That's the first step. Now think about the future as well. Kids, education. How do we educate them? There are so many things we can do. We don't know how the world is going to look like in 20 years. That example about the aeroplane and us being able to step into the moon for the first time. In such a short period of time, if you think about it, that is going to be shortened and shortened and shortened further for newer technologies. So we as parents, or we as educators, we as professionals, the closer and the more we facilitate their journey for this newer generation to embrace new technology and make these new technologies available to the next generation, to the next generation, so on and so forth. I think this is very important, and that is definitely part of the equation.
Thank you. I'm probably going to throw it open to everyone in the room. If you do have a question, please put your hand up. Say your name and where you're from, and if it's a question for a specific sort of member of the panel, please let us know who your question's directed to. Over there.
Hello, I'm Robin Cook, and I have a small education company based in Nambour. If anyone would like to share some love to Nambour, we'd really love to have you there. We use Google suite of documents every day in our work. Now that you're on the Sunshine Coast, what sort of things are you going to specifically offer to education facilities, particularly around the 15 to 19-year-old age group? What can we take advantage of in that?
Our intention is to work closer with the Sunshine Coast Council, understand what we can work together with and fit ourselves into this program of work, this roadmap. One thing we don't want to do is to start doing sporadic solutions that does not impact the community as much. The approach we're trying to make, and we try to make this everywhere, is more pervasive because from experience, as we partner with an organization like the Sunshine Coast, we can always see we maximize the impact. So hopefully we can make it available sooner than later, but that's the direction we're taking.
Hi, Greg Searle, how are you doing? I'm doing some research in AI. I think it's been the most said phrase so far tonight, AI this, AI that, etc., etc. My question is, what about cognition? Do they understand what we mean? And where are we with that? That's the area that I'm interested in. Thank you.
Who wants to take that? Craig?
Sure. I've been doing AI research for over a decade, and I can absolutely guarantee you I don't have an answer. What do we know with absolute certainty? I mean, we are building machines today that have more compute capability than they've ever had in history. If you think about the change that we've made, we've gone from the history of general purpose computing to accelerated computing. So the move from CPUs to GPUs gives us 10 to 100 times more computing capability. But the machines are still programmed, and programs can have bias programmed into them. If you think about the way a large language model learns, part of the challenge with the accuracy or the validation or trust in information is if we teach a large language model exactly the same way as we teach a human in school, the knowledge that we deliver to them is the only context that they have. So today a lot of large language models can be trained not just on Wikipedia, but they can be trained on Reddit chats. So they can be trained with everybody's opinions that aren't necessarily right or wrong. The shift from having access to the universes of information, then being able to make sense of it and have opinions, is a trait that is innately human. And I'm not sure that that move to what's described, the question you're asking is about sentience to some example, which is the ability for machines to be able to think for themselves. And there are some great books on sentience. Mustafa Suleyman, The Coming Wave for AI. There's a lot of great books being written on this question recently. So will our future AI overlords look favourably upon us in a decade to come? I think the bigger question is going to be about how we continue to train large language models, the biases that the models have, and then ultimately their ability to be able to continue to interact with humans. I very, very regularly get asked the question, will we need a universal basic income in the future because everybody will be out of a job? And I think that if you go back in history, in every industrial revolution, new technology was developed. It made society better. It gave us the ability to solve problems that we never historically had solved. And I think the bigger question, maybe in the next 5 or 10 years, is how can we improve the quality of society through the advancement of technology using large language models. In the future, there may be a question to ask or answer about superintelligence and can machines think for themselves. And I'm sure at some point in time, just like in human biology, synthetic biology will have to solve the regulatory and legislative questions that come with how computers will think for themselves. Good luck.
Just quickly on that, as a point of ethics in healthcare, rather than the cognition piece, the feeling of being human. So I've went to Afghanistan, I've worked in Iraq. You know, the concept of equity in resources is stark in the modern world, let alone from Brisbane to Mount Isa. But just think about aged care. I don't know, is anyone parents in an aged care home at the moment? Right, it's a hard industry, right? It's hard for nurses to work in. Imagine that there's an AI agent speaking with your mum and dad in an aged care. This could happen tomorrow. right? I could build you an Unreal Engine, high-fidelity avatar with metahumans, put ChatGPT with the $200 a month subscription into that Unreal Engine person, and they could sit with your mum and dad in a nursing home and talk to them as a point of company. That usability and UX of how we talk and interact with compute and technology is what we're going to have to derive, because it's coming really fast. So what is human? Because in nursing we argue about the nurse's role being holding the hand and being the Florence Nightingale, the point of compassion. Is a computer going to do that? Because we don't have enough nurses. In 2035 in Australia alone, we're going to be 60,000 nurses short. So, you know, cognition is one thing, human essence is another, because that human essence could be applied tomorrow, which is kind of fascinating.
Thank you. Look, I think we're probably going to have to wrap it up. I get the sense that we could probably have gone for a lot longer. A really fascinating sort of topic.